Hi everyone, I'm Ryan with Quantum Property Inspections. Today we're going to learn a little bit about water heater maintenance and how to change a temperature pressure relief valve, and we're going to bring in the pros to show us how to do it properly. But before we start, let me introduce you to the temperature pressure relief valve. Every water heater should be equipped with one of these. So what happens is if your water heater is faulty and it continually heats the water inside the tank, that hot water begins to expand and pressurize that tank. But since the invention of the relief valve, when that water gets to a certain temperature or pressure, it'll begin to spill out of this valve through the tube and onto the floor where you can see it, and you'll know that there's a problem with your water heater. Unfortunately, before the invention of the relief valve, there were stories of water heaters pressurizing to such a point where they actually detonated in somebody's house. And manufacturers learned the hard way and came up with the solution of the relief valve. So now let's bring in the pros and see what they have to say. All right, I'm here with Al from RT Heating and Air Conditioning. Thanks for coming, Al.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
So as you can see, I've got a faulty TPR valve, temperature pressure relief valve. So what do you think is the cause of this?
Well, with the temperature and pressure relief valve in a hot water tank, it's a safety device to prevent overpressurization or overheating of the tank. Basically, with the hot water tank, when it heats up, it has thermal expansion. So it's a pressure relief valve to keep you and your family safe from overpressurization of a hot water tank.
So I tested the valve and that's when it started leaking on me. So obviously there's some calcium buildup in there. Correct. That are holding that open.
Yeah, basically what happens is there's a seat that sits against the wall of the temperature and pressure relief valve, and once you open it up to test it, sometimes that seat wears out. It's a rubber seal, it wears out and it doesn't seat back correctly. So then at that point you would need to replace it.
Okay, and how often do you think it's a good idea to test these valves?
Annually, once a year.
Annually? Okay. It's an older water tank. It's 14 years old. Is it worthwhile fixing a valve at this age?
Typically 14 years old, we would recommend replacing the tank. In Red Deer, with the hard water, calcium, magnesium, we say the average life expectancy of a hot water tank is 10 to 15 years.
Okay, so I might be just throwing my money away by fixing this valve right now.
Yes.
And what ultimately does in a water tank at the end of its life?
Basically, what'll happen is it'll start leaking out of the base of the tank. It'll create a pinhole, and then it'll just get bigger from there.
Oh, really? Okay, so actual leaks are actually what you're going to look for when your
Correct.
Water heater is almost done. Or how about sediment buildup at the bottom of your water tank?
Yeah, so basically, if you never drain your tank, we recommend you drain it once a year. The sediment will build up in the bottom of the tank, making it less efficient, and so it'll take it longer to heat up as well.
Okay. Now, is this something I could do on my own, or is it a bad idea to try and attempt replacing that valve on my own?
We would recommend having a professional plumber gas fitter to have a look at your hot water tank, especially if you're replacing a T&P relief valve, because that is a safety device on your tank and you want to have a licensed contractor to repair that for you.
Definitely. So even though it's an older tank, we're going to replace the TPR valve because it's leaking, and the tank still works really well right now. We're also going to do some other things to see what we can do to extend the life of the water tank. So what else do you want to do today?
Yeah, so basically we're going to drain down the hot water tank. We're going to replace this valve with a bigger 3/4 inch valve, and we're going to use our transfer pump that we have to flush out the sediment, as much sediment as we can out of the tank. And as well as that, we're going to pull the burners out of the hot water tank and clean the burners and the intake screen to make sure that your hot water tank doesn't overheat from the burners, because basically what happens is when you can't get enough air into the bottom of the hot water tank, your burners light up and then it has the potential of overheating. So we're going to clean that all up, and then we'll show you guys after what it looks like after, kind of a before and after.
Okay, great. And the purpose of upsizing that drain valve, is that to help it get more of that sediment out?
Yeah, to help get more of that sediment, because basically it looks like chalk in the bottom of the hot water tank. Might not get all of it out, but we'll get a lot of it. So
all right, let's start taking it apart.
it sounds good.
So we close the water supply off to the hot water tank. Do we need to turn off the gas?
Yeah, what we do is put the hot water tank to pilot so it's not heating up as we're draining it.
But we can leave the gas turned on.
Correct.
Okay.
So as you can see, this temperature and pressure relief valve is pretty worn out. All the sediment build up on it. Calcium and magnesium just build up on the end of the temperature and pressure relief valve.
Wow. So we can see why it's not closing fully. All that buildup right there is why my TPR valve is continuously leaking and it cannot fully close. Calcium and magnesium buildup.
So we're just going to take the drain valve out here to put in a bigger one.
We're all done pumping. The water tank is completely empty right now.
It's very hard to get out because of all the sediment in there and the constant heating and cooling of the
valve. Yeah. So it can be pretty jammed in there, and
yeah.
Every once in a while these will actually snap off on you.
Correct. Yeah, if you're not careful and you're trying to do it yourself, there is a risk of it snapping off. Yeah, as you can see, sediment coming out, partially plugged up in the valve. Crud. And yeah, that'd be a good picture.
So now you're just cleaning some of the buildup off of the threads?
Yeah, just cleaning it up so we can get the new drain valve in there to flush the tank out.
So now we're going to flush the water tank. We're going to open up the supply water, and that's going to come blasting in and mix up that sediment. We're getting a few small chunks like this, but most of the sediment seems to be pretty packed down there and bonded with the tank, so we're gonna have to live with what we got here.
Now we're gonna go ahead and reinstall the TPR relief valve back into the tank.
And it's important to have one of these discharge tubes to carry any scalding hot water down to the floor and not spraying out directly from the valve. And why wouldn't you want to hook this pipe right up to your floor drain?
Typically we don't want to have a PVC piping right to the floor drain because one of the reasons is you can't tell if your tank is leaking or if there's a problem. Another reason is if it did get plugged up with sediment in the tube going to the floor drain, it could cause for a hazardous condition. So far, we've drained and flushed the 14-year-old hot water tank, and we've replaced the temperature and pressure relief valve as it was leaking as we tested it to check for operation, and it was stuck and it had calcium magnesium on it, so that's brand new. We flushed out the tank with the pump, and we're just going to go ahead and clean out the burner chamber and burner compartment.
And how do we do that?
So basically we have to shut off the gas, and then from there we have to take the connections on the bottom of the gas valve and then pull the burners out. This specifically, when dealing with gas, we definitely recommend that a professional gas fitter is the one that services this part of the hot water tank. So we'll go ahead and take this apart. Another danger here is if you were to do this yourself, you could possibly cross thread these threads here and then potentially cause a gas leak as well. Right now I'm undoing the pilot tubing for the pilot. that out of the way, and then this is the main burner tubing here. And then the last piece is the thermocouple.
What are you taking apart there?
We're just taking apart these screws for the burner cabinet. We'll be able to pull the burners out.
Wow, it's all one unit.
Yep.
That's what your water heater burner looks like.
And you can see all the stuff on there. Looks like it's never been cleaned. And if you just flash inside the burner cabinet there, you can see that there's a screen. That should be cleaned and vacuumed out as well. It's pretty good. This is the trickiest part about the whole job, putting this back in here and then lining up with the gasket. That's good.
So what are we doing right now?
We're just relighting the pilot, and then we're going to check with gas leaks with our electronic gas leak detector. And when we do a furnace maintenance, we check the whole mechanical room and any exposed piping for gas leaks as well.
There she goes.
Now we got the tank lit, and it'll be heating back up shortly. Checking for more gas leaks as we fired it up. And we're all good to go.
So is there anything else left for us to do? Or is that about it?
We've inspected the venting, gas line, replaced the TPR valve. We have a new drain on there, so it's easier for flushing it out. We cleaned the burners, checked the operation of the thermocouple, and we cleaned the air screen coming onto the inside of the hot water tank as well, and checked for gas leaks. So we're all, looking good. We'd probably recommend, now that we've serviced it, you replace it in the next year or two.
So I guess the idea behind replacing it within a year or two would be so we don't wait until the last minute when the water tank fails and then we have a leak. Correct. Or we're stuck without hot water.
Correct.
All right, thank you RT Heating and Air Conditioning for coming out. Thank you, Al, for taking the time. I appreciate
Thanks for having us.
Hopefully we'll get a couple more years out of this water heater.
Yeah, you betcha.
All right, thank you.